therefore the number of properties that we're assigning to our approved agent database is down. So if you were one of our agents and you used to, on average, have 8 or 10 properties, you may only have 2 or 3 right now, simply because of a factor of the amount of properties that we have available to market right now.
So are you looking to, given the circumstances, to upgrade your agent network? Are there any processes underway for to kind of weed out the good or the bad with the good? I assume that every PAS agent is a great agent, but you have a scorecard and you have ways of measuring the performance. So is there anything going on in that regard with our current agent network?
We do, and I think most of the people who are on this call today that are in our approved agent network will agree that we do at Wells have very high standards in how we expect the agents to perform. Because they are representing Wells Fargo when you think about it. And one of the top priorities at Wells is to always ensure that our customer service is at its best and that we partner with the communities to continue to build upon those communities and ensure that our reputation is perceived as the best in the industry. And so when we are determining whether agents are going to be a part of our network or whether they can stay with our network, we do have some fairly high standards. And for those that are on the phone, they know that are a part of our network now. We do review their performance, and it's based upon how well they're turning the properties for us, what the net proceeds are, whether or not we get any complaints from customers or interested people maybe not being attentive to the property. But primarily the things that we look at when we are looking to add to our agent database is what is their experience as an REA or as an agent. As a real estate agent, you have to have a minimum of 5 years, and preferably 3 years in REO. You have to show the number of listings that you have or have had as it relates to REO for the last couple of years, as well as any short sale listings, because we're trying to build upon our short sale database as well. Also, property valuations, your ability to determine what the values are. So we ask you to provide us with 2 or 3 BPOs as part of the application process so we can see how well you are capable of valuing properties for us, because that's key in helping us move these properties, is determining what the right value is, therefore the right list price. And also we do an OFAC review, which is basically it's a review of the foreign assets and determining whether or not there's any concerns about money laundering or anything that
Sure.
you might have been a violation of in the past. We've got to make sure that the agents that are a part of our network are representative of the highest standards and highest creditworthiness and are going to be good representation for us. And so keep those things in mind for those of you who may not have been selected as a part of our network now. It is not an easy network to get in because we do have such high standards that we set.
Now, to position oneself to be a member of the PAS network, what are some of the things they can do? For example, many agents have joined, if not one, they've joined them all of the minority trade associations, from NAREP, ARIA, and NAREP. Many are working very closely with cities and part of nonprofit organizations. What are some of the things you guys look at to determine if this person has added value to our network?
We do. That's more a points in your benefit if you are a participant or a member of any of those associations. But one of the things that we do ask for is a minimum of 3 professional references.
Okay.
So if you have strong relationships, whether it be another real estate group that you have worked with in the past or that you just have partnered with on buying and selling transactions in the past, it could be members of our retail production team, the home mortgage consultants that we have out in the field. It could be one of the executives from one of the boards of one of the associations that you may be a part of, and presenting to us that if you have someone at a level of like the board with NAREP or AREA or something that you can present to us and they acknowledge that you are a member in good standing and do represent this industry well, then those are certainly going to be benefits for you.
What about language needs? Do we have a challenge with that in our network of needing people to speak some of the foreign languages? You know, Orange County particularly is a melting pot of diversity, and I'm sure that's the case in other areas in the state. Is that something that perhaps an agent should highlight it in their resume?
Certainly. Absolutely. You should reference that if you are bilingual, multilingual, anything that will help us in knowing that you're going to be able to cover a certain market for us. There's two things that we do at Wells. The first thing is when we assign properties to an agent, we do try to assign them in a small radius, hopefully within 5 miles, but for the most part within 8 to 10 miles. When you start getting into some of the more rural areas, we'll generally go up to 20 or 25 miles, or depending upon agent availability. But our thoughts are that if we assign a property within a 5-mile radius of the property to an agent in that area, then we are picking up agents, and agents are representing us and managing those properties in the markets that they serve. So that's the first thing that we are always hopeful for. And especially when you're talking about like in L.A. County,
right,
and an area when it's very difficult to even go 5 miles in some cases, and it takes you a long time, we want to make sure that we have fair representation in those markets. The other thing that we do is we have what we call a diversity supplier group that we work with in partnership. And and this is with all of our vendors, not just our real estate community that is in our REO database, but with all of the vendors that we use. So we partner with our supplier diversity group to ensure that we are doing all that we can to bring in business partners that are going to represent all the markets that we serve.
Well, that's fantastic. That certainly shows an effort to, number one, make sure we have representatives that reflect the community they serve by having a very a short distance. So it's a 5-mile radius or less, unless you absolutely have to go further out.
That's right.
Yeah. Speak to their current banking relationships. One of the things that we get requests as consultants and managers all the time for to get on the PAS network, and we don't have the authority. It would be that would be a great thing, JK, if you would just give me authority for one day to add some people to the list. I would promise you they would be top-notch individuals. But that aside for now, we'll talk about that later offline. We tell people all the time that you've got to have a relationship with Wells Fargo. You have to have a relationship with Wells Fargo if you really want a chance to get into our network, because we have tons of agents already in our network. Can you speak to that issue for a minute?
I can, and we do have a process. Anytime any of our home mortgage consultants have someone that they have worked with, and maybe the home mortgage consultant might have been working on the financing side of a property that was a short sale with a completely different servicer. And through that process, they realized that the agent was very knowledgeable and very strong in their short sale or REO management skills. So we many times do get referrals from our home mortgage consultants, and they'll do just that. They basically send, sometimes just me, but there are other people that manage that group for me. They'll send an email over to us and say, hey, we'd like for you to give consideration to Sue Smith, who is an agent with XYZ broker shop.
Right.
And so we will reach out to that agent or to that broker and say, a number of things. We'll look at, first of all, how many, what area are they in? What number of properties do we have in the area right now? In California, It's a bit tough because the market inventory is down. And for those that are on the phone that are approved agents, they know how difficult it was to become an agent, and I think they would appreciate that if they only have 2 properties assigned to them right now when they're capable of handling 10, they probably wouldn't be real happy with me if I set up other agents and then they got only one property until any inventory starts to pick up.
Sure.
But we do know that people change businesses. There are some agents that voluntarily get out of managing REO and go into a different career. And so when we do have a need for agents, it's good to know that we have agents that they're waiting for us in order to pick them up as an approved agent. So just because we may not put someone in the approved network today doesn't mean that we wouldn't reach out to them in another 30 days, 60 days, 6 months, whatever the demand is going to be. But it's very important, I think, to get those referrals to us, you, Eric, and the rest of the HMCs, to get those referrals over to us so that way we can take a look at what our market need is, start the process of working with those agents to see whether or not they can even qualify to be an agent in our network and get the process rolling so when we do have a need, it's easy to add them.
Well, that's great news. So they should not give up, keep hope alive, and continue to deepen their relationship with Wells Fargo because the recommendation means a lot.
That's right.
Yeah. Let's talk about short sales. And, the title of our call is You Want to Be a Short Sale and REO Agent. Are we assigning short sales, people who have agreed to short sell their property, are we assigning them to agents right now? Do we have a top-down model for short sales?
We don't assign per se, but let me tell you a couple of things that we're doing, and I think most of the folks on the call are going to know, especially if they are primarily in the short sale business. The short sale transaction, keep in mind that this is still a resale transaction, all right? We're just getting funds considered that are less than the total amount due. So the sales contract agreement is still between a seller and a buyer. A seller, generally our customer, and a buyer who is a person interested in buying the property. And so that seller still owns that property outside of the debt that they have outstanding to us. So they still are entitled to choose whatever agent they want to list their property. It's up to them to choose. We can't make them choose a short sale agent, right? But what we are working on developing is what we call an agent finder tool, where we are increasing and developing a database that is going to include agents who are experienced in short sales. So if we are talking to a customer on the phone, and let's say that we've been talking to them about potential opportunities to help them stay in the home, and they've just decided, that I just can't afford to stay here anymore, I need to move on, I need to sell this home, but I don't know where to begin. So the agent finder tool allows us to plug in a zip code of where that property is, and it will identify 3 or 4 agents that we can refer that customer to, because ultimately that agreement is still going to be between that customer and that listing agent when they get the listing agreement done. And so by referring agents to that customer, then that customer will reach out to those agents that we have started to develop a relationship with, we know have experience, we know they have the credentials and the knowledge to be able to sell the property as a short sale. That's what we're ultimately continuing to build upon. So we can't make them choose the agent, but we can certainly give them some names to consider for agents, and hopefully those are going to be agents that they will select, that we have a relationship with, and that are knowledgeable in moving a short sale, because those people on this call that do manage short sales compared to resales, it's different. Short sales are not necessarily an easy transaction. They can become very complex depending upon what investor that loan was sold to and whether or not there are subordinate liens or MI involved. It can become very complex, and it's not an easy transaction.
Now, will the referring agent, will the agent that's being referred, that comes up on the tool, will they know that they've been referred to a borrower that wants to short sell their property, or will the borrower have to reach out to that agent?
Right now, the customer will have to reach out. We're always very cognizant of concern with any privacy issues. Mm-hmm. Now, if the customer opts in to allow us to have that agent or those agents call them, then we will. But it's really up to the agent at this stage. I'm sorry, the customer, to make the contact with the agent at this stage.
So the